Hi everyone, it's Roger and James here from What's on Disney Plus. So in this video, we're going to be talking all about our top 5 Disney films. Now we've kind of left this pretty open, pretty much anything that kind of comes under the Disney banner. So we're going to take in turns one after another in terms of going through it all. But this is going to be, a little bit of fun. We actually said it's kind of quite hard trying to pick just 5 movies from across Disney. So this doesn't include Pixar, it doesn't include Marvel or Star Wars or anything like that. So it's just the Disney brand. So I'll go first, and I'm going to pick. I'm going to go a little bit different here. Pirates of the Caribbean. So I'm going to go with this franchise. The original movie, I think, is still the best. The Curse of the Black Pearl. I love this movie. I thought it's fantastic. The action, bringing back pirates, just seemed to work. Johnny Depp is fantastic in the role. It was fun. I still love listening to the music now. I listen to it all the time when I'm editing. I just love the theme song. Obviously, a big fan of the ride, but this was one of the best Disney movies live action. I think they've done in decades.
Yeah, that is a really, really good movie. Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl. No matter what you think of the sequels, all 5 of them at this point, the first one still holds up. It stands on its own, and they just nailed it. The casting was perfect. The music is fantastic. That soundtrack is probably the best non sing-along soundtrack.
Yeah.
So not like one of the Disney classics, but it's so energetic and fun. I will spoil. This is on my list too, but it is not a number 5 spot.
No, it was. Yeah, I mean, mine are not really in any in particular order either, because that was even harder to try and run it down with. But yeah, Pirates of the Caribbean to me is. There's just something about it. It just captures. I only recently rewatched it again. One of those things, if I flick through the like you're flicking through the TV and it was on TV. It's about like 45 minutes in, and you end up like 2 hours and like an hour later, you're watching it to the end. You had no plans of watching it, but you end up just getting sucked in. This one. Like Transformers, Back to the Future, and Star Wars, they kind of all have that kind of feel for me. The minute I put them on TV, they're stuck. Yep. But I love this film. I just think it's fantastic.
Yeah, and everything, the special effects, the acting, not just Depp, but Orlando Bloom, Keira Knightley, Jeffrey Rush. They just did a fantastic job. Everyone nailed their roles.
Yeah. So what was one of yours?
So I'm going to admit up front that this is very heavily influenced by nostalgia goggles. This isn't necessarily doesn't deserve to be in the top 5, but it's one that I really loved from my childhood. So this is one of my personal favorite movies, which is The Cat from Outer Space. This is from the 1970s, I believe, and it is literally your everyday house cat, but they are in a spaceship and they land on Earth and their spaceship is broken and hijinks ensue, and they come across this scientist, and he has to help them get a little bar of gold and things like that. And like I said, this is not a Disney classic. I'm not telling people you need to rush out and watch this on Disney Plus, though. If you do, let us know and see if you enjoy it. But I loved this movie as a child. I watched this frequently, and the humor from it, the special effects for the time were really good. I just really enjoyed this one. So this is in my top 5. Roger, you seem to be muted.
See, I actually don't think I've actually ever seen this one. I think yeah.
And I honestly would expect most people are in the same boat, because this is kind of this predates Disney Channel or Disney Channel as we know it. And so unless you really watched, a lot of these movies like The Absent-Minded Professor or The Nutty Professor, or things like that, this one probably passed by. It doesn't get brought up very often, but I will anecdotally say my former boss at my current job, he's moved on to another job, but I quoted this movie just completely out of the blue, and we had that like Spider-Man finger guns moment, like, I get that reference. You got that reference? Oh my God, we're best friends all of a sudden. Said, when you do find someone who's seen this movie, normally it has had at least a little bit of an impact on, because it is so much fun.
Yeah, it's strange. Yeah, like I said, that one, I don't think I've seen it. It might have been on TV and I watched it, but I don't think it. But I don't remember it. All right, so moving on from there, I'm gonna go into the world of animation, into The Lion King. So this one came out probably. I think this was maybe like the last of the animated movies because I was about 14 when this came out, and I remember it just being great. I remember going to cinema to see it, watching it, but also it's kind of one of the few movies I feel like I have got more appreciation for as I've gotten older. And it's not just even just down to, like when you go to the theme parks, you see like the things. But I think seeing the stage show, I've seen it a couple of times, like in London and other locations. The music, I think it's grown as I've got older. That music's become more and more important. And the film, just as a whole, it was just on to me on like another level from previous animated films. I was maybe that little bit older. I understood it at a different level, but it's one like of an animated film. It kind of feels to me like it will the last big animation film before everything kind of went to Pixar as well. But this one for me, I just think it's amazing from top to bottom.
Oh, it's a fantastic one. This is one that was fighting very hard to get onto my list. It didn't quite make it, but The Lion King is great. And it's interesting how as you get older too, your favorite song from it kind of shifts. Like when you're younger, it's probably like a Hakuna Matata, and as you get older, might shift to I Can't Wait to Be King, or even Can You Feel the Love Tonight. And again, just like we were talking about with Pirates of the Caribbean, the casting in this is fantastic, to the point where they even got James Earl Jones to come back and do Mufasa in the live action as well. I will say Jeremy Irons was iconic as Scar. It's the end of an era for the Disney movies. I know you can kind of draw that line. You send it out to Pocahontas, maybe Mulan, but honestly, for me, it always feels like Lion King was kind of that end of the era, and it was such an amazing movie to end it on.
Yeah, it was amazing. And over this summer, I was lucky enough to go see Elton John in concert, and he didn't do any of the Lion King, and there was a couple of montage on the thing. It's like I just so wanted him to do, like Circle of Life or and it was just like no, but he didn't do it. But I understood why. But that was secretly that kind of thing. It was just like please do it. But yes, for me, I think again over. It has a big heavy influence in the parks. It's obviously they've made the live action version, and the live action version's okay. I would always go back to the original because it's just better. I think it's better overall. But yeah, I that one easily made my list. So what else is on your top 5?
We'll draw from the same era here actually, and go with Beauty and the Beast, the animated version. So while Lion King was kind of the big one for you when you're growing up, Beauty and the Beast is probably for me the same deal. It had such great music. Even now, like all of the songs, every single song in that movie, I love. The animation was great. The story was a lot of fun. I wasn't much of a romantic as a kid, but it was one of the few movies where it's like, yes, they need to get together and be happy and find everlasting love and all that stuff. And the aesthetic of it, villain Gaston is still one of my absolute favorite villains because he's one of the few villains who you're just like, you're completely irredeemable. I know they tried to do it in the live action a little bit, but he is like the anti-intellectual misogynist villain, and it's very satisfying to see him just get taken down by the end of the movie.
It's funny as well because for me, I don't have nostalgia for this film because I didn't watch it as a kid. I didn't watch it till literally, put it on with my wife, and watched it. I was like, oh, I really enjoy. And I'd seen, we'd been to we were going to the theme parks. We were going to Disney for the first time together, and I'm glad I've seen it, and I've obviously loved the attraction. And as you say, as an older viewer, I get the music, and there's a whole host of it. It's a lot better than the live action version. But it's funny because, like I said, it was just one that as a kid. Because you've got sisters where I even have a brother, so this again I think has an influence on like what we watched as kids, because things like Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Pocahontas, they weren't movies we didn't rent when when you could get your 50p rental at the video shop. It was that you went to the ones you knew and all the rest of it. But so for me, Beauty and the Beast, I love it as an I kind of fell for it as an adult rather than and I love the music in it, and it is amazing. And the whole Be Our Guest, I love that. But I don't know if that's like more influence from the parks and stuff where I've that whole element. But yeah, Beauty and the Beast is a really good one.
And I would also, speaking of the music, I would say it's got one of the best love ballads of any of the Disney ones, with Mrs. Potts singing the overarching Beauty and the Beast song. She did a fantastic job singing that. And it's one of the best ones in any Disney musical period, I think.
Yeah, no, it is great. It is a really good one. Right, so now I'm going to jump in now with my next one, which is The Jungle Book. This is one of those classic films as a kid that I used to watch over and over again. The music in it, this is like, and even now, the music just brings it back in. It's just something about this one, with Baloo and Bagheera and King Louis. I love this one. This one's like one of my kind of. It was I was really tricky to try and pick between this and Robin Hood. Those were the two like prime ones for me, and I thought the Jungle Book's that a little bit better than Robin Hood. But yeah, for me, this is one of the quintessential movies of me as a kid being a Disney fan.
And this is where, again, we kind of diverge a bit, because I didn't really see The Jungle Book much as a kid. This is one I saw later in life. However, I was very familiar with the music because, of course, The Bare Necessities and I Want to Be Like You. Those are on all of the, cassette tapes from the 80s of greatest Disney hits and sing-alongs that your parents are going to get annoyed to on the long car trips. So I knew the songs really well. I didn't see the movie until I was much older, but it does hold up really well. And yeah, it's a much tamer version of The Jungle Book than if you actually read the story, but it is a really good one, and you can see why it still holds up. It's still one of the ones that people remember even today.
Yeah. No. Okay. So what's one of your ones on your list?
Actually, ironically enough, I was going to go with Robin Hood on that. So let's get both sides of that. And, I've got King John sitting back here behind me, so that might have been a little bit of a thing. But yeah, Robin Hood. This was my version of The Jungle Book. This was the one where we would go up to visit my grandmother every year during the summer, and this was one of the movies that we absolutely had to sit down and watch and make sure. And it's just a fun, silly movie. You can't take it too seriously. There are much more serious Robin Hood movies out there, but this one is one of my favorite. And I know some people get annoyed by John's over the top, laugh, the silliness, and then of course his mother fixation, where whenever someone mentions mom, he has to suck his thumb and reverse the little child mode or whatever. But that aside, it captured what I wanted in a fun, actiony Robin Hood story. It reminded me a bit of the Errol Flynn one from way back in the day. This one was a big part of my childhood, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, this one was like one of my most watched movies as a kid. It's kind of funny because like looking back on it now, it was this, Bedknobs and Broomsticks, and also The Jungle Book were like a trio, and they were also similar in terms of the characters. The whole thing of like, well, you reuse the animation. It was very quickly noticed as a kid, like going, you watching those three movies, they borrowed a lot from each other. But yeah, Robin Hoodism, it was like. I think it was in that like 7 or 8 of just like, oh, I love it. It's like it was like trying to weasel it down, and I was just like, oh yeah. So I'm glad it went on your list because it was this close. It would have been in my top 10.
Right. Well, it's funny you mentioned the reusing the animation. I didn't see Aristocats until much later in life. It's not on the list, but I saw Aristocats, and I was like, that dance looks awfully familiar. And it's like, that's Maid Marian's dance from Robin Hood. They literally just layered on top of it. You can find gifs of it of people comparing the two scenes. And
well, the thing is, obviously, is at the time no one would know unless when they originally came out. A lot of these in the they were released years apart, and they kept getting so you had no way of checking. Of course, now it's just like that, and you can do it. But yeah, in the days before Disney Plus and stuff, you couldn't have really have checked it. But yeah, Robin Hood, just that whole opening with the whistling, I love it. That just takes me back.
Not even streaming. People don't realize that like movie rental stores really were just an 80s invention and on into the 90s and 2000s. If this was before 80s, you were only watching Robin Hood if it was in the theater, or the Aristocats or any of these.
Well, also as well is that can have it would have had an impact on me because you used to be able to rent a movie, and then you would go into the other room that they had in this little video. It was like on the corner of my street, tiny little thing, probably number, and you could rent a second movie for 50p. So usually it was a toss up between a Disney movie or a WWF tape, and those were the two, and that's what we would go to. and that was what I grew up on. Was we were, or if you only had 50p, or your granddad would go get a tape or something for 50p, and that's what we would do. You'd in the cheap section, and it was Disney movies and WWE WF tapes. Those were what I grew up on in the and that money we were spent at the video shop on others because they were cheap stuff. And but that would have, what was in that section also would have indicated, because if there wasn't, if like Mulan wasn't in there. And it wouldn't have been obviously when we were kids. It was, you would have moved it. You would have just moved on.
Yeah, pretty much. We didn't have the same kind of like rent a second one for cheaper thing, but we've all had similar experiences of if it's not in the store or if it doesn't catch your eye, you're just not watching it.
It also probably didn't help the fact that the video shop was literally only about 200 meters from my house, so it was so close. You literally and you used to try to get it back before 6 o'clock because you could get it for half price because we were so close. You literally could run down there, get it, and then come back. And it was that was my Disney Plus, was the video shop.
I have a lot of fond memories of our local. Mine wasn't quite that close, but it was definitely walking distance, and we would go there all the time. But yeah, very fond memories.
That's the thing as well. I think that makes a big impact on me. Right, now, moving on to one of my choices. Gonna go a little bit more modern, and this is Moana. I love this one. I think this one is one of the better of the newer movies from Disney. I don't know if it's, the music in it is amazing. How far you go, you're welcome. I don't know as well if this just has a lot of, because The Rock in it he's just this, Maui is just a souped up version of The Rock at the time. And this movie is just one. I came on, flicking through the TV, it was on the BBC. And again, I got stuck and didn't move. Not planned on watching it, but there it was. It's just a stick. But yeah, Moana is one of my favorite modern Disney movies. I was like, Encanto or Turning Red or Moana, let's go for something new. And I was just like, no, Moana is just, there's a reason why it's continuously in the trending charts on Disney Plus, is because it's so good. Yeah, I love this one. I love the Pacific aspect to it as well. There's just so many elements to this, and this is an adult. I was, this is like late 30s for me when this came out, and this captured something, just a spark in my mind. It captured me. This one.
It's a real, it is a really, really good one. You're Welcome, of course, is fantastic. The Rock does a great job as Maui. I love little Hey, the chicken.
I didn't realize. Now we were in London, and we went into this like Hawaiian burger place. And I picked up the salt, and it said hee on it.
Yeah,
never knew. And it was suddenly I sat at the table and went, "Oh, hee!" And my wife was like, "What about Maui?" And suddenly, I had no idea what it was like. That was like a year later, like a year or two later. It's like just a joke that I completely didn't get into something like randomly in a Hawaiian restaurant.
But it's details like that show that the animators and the writers cared about things. A joke that maybe 1 in 50 people is going to get. And this is the first time I've even heard of that one, so I didn't know about that. But that's how you know they care, because they're putting in details like that. And if you get the joke, it's great. And if you don't get the joke, you don't even know you missed anything, which is great. For me, Hey, though, watching Alan Tudyk do the behind the scenes voice acting, if you want to call it that, for the chicken is just fantastic. Look it up on YouTube if you haven't seen it. It might be in the special features on Disney Plus, but yeah, Alan Tudyk, who of course is like the modern in every Disney movie actor, and from Firefly and things like that. It's an iconic clip, honestly, of him just behind the scenes, like kind of like when you see Ellen DeGeneres doing her whale talk from Finding Nemo and just fully exaggerating things like that. So none of the modern movies are on my list, but Moana definitely would have been very near the top. Also, Big Hero 6 would have been near the top too. I happen to like that one quite a bit. It will be a time will tell on which one of these ones from the current era stand out for a long period of time, but they have been knocking them out. Encanto, which you mentioned, it currently still doing really well. Moana's doing really well, and then even things like Tangled and The Princess and the Frog, they're holding up.
It's funny because like Tangled was one for me where I was, again, that was in the top end of it, and I'm like, and it was like I really enjoy that one, and but the thing is for me is like I saw the Tangled stage show on the Disney Magic, and they also got a restaurant there where they perform, and it was that kind of thing of like, oh, I don't know if like that has like brought that one up a bit for me because of like seeing, and this is like you say, this is where the a movie can become more than just a movie, and it's like I think for me, Tangled, the music of that one is so good. But yeah, Tangled is that. I think that might have been that could have easily been in the top 10 if I'd done one.
I am particularly fond of the lantern scene from that, and they've got the two of them singing. It's just a really lovely scene. I could honestly just kind of put that on loop with the music off, just on the screen, and just have the lanterns floating there. It's a very nice, calming scene.
Okay, so what else is on your list?
We'll go back to the one that I mentioned is on the list, which is Pirates of the Caribbean. We won't spend much time on it because we already talked about it, but that's number 2 on my list. I really love this movie. It's so much fun, and just like you, I can put this on in the background, or intend to put it on in the background, and after an hour I'll realize I have not gotten any work done because I'm watching Pirates of the Caribbean. We've hammered the point plenty. It's a great movie. Modern classic. I will be watching this like all the way up until my final days. It's just so much fun.
Yeah, it is great. Now, kind of on the same tone of that, another movie that I had on my list was National Treasure. So this one is obviously, we got the new Disney Plus series coming up. Nicolas Cage running around America, American history. This movie, again, just as an adult of enjoying it, and really I'll be honest, a lot, and it is awful to say, I learned a lot of American history from these films. I remember distinctively where we would go on a trek around America, and we were going to Washington, D.C. And I was like, oh, I want to go see the Declaration of Independence. And the only reason I knew about it being there was because of the film. And I know that would be awful for, I know Americans, but
I would hope that my fellow Americans would recognize that, most countries don't learn American history except as it pertains to their individual country. And it would be the same as us watching a movie set in England like and learning. Actually, I was going to mention Robin Hood, but any of those movies, and that's how you learn about Big Ben or the London Bridge or any of the palaces, anything like that. We learn most of our history from pop culture. Obviously, for both of us, there's going to be a little bit of overlap because, we're former English colonies, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm just, for my fellow Americans, don't be offended that this is how non-Americans are learning about Washington, D.C. and the treasures that are over there.
Yeah. And again, it's like, that thing of like learning about it and then kind of going on to like read up about it and just kind of like clarify, that little bit of information. For me, again, that adventure, because it was like I kind of think like Indiana Jones doesn't qualify. It can't qualify Indiana Jones, and this kind of had that vibe to me. It was the closest thing I think to Indiana Jones we kind of really have seen, really. So I love Nicolas Cage in it. All the big movies that he was in, like The Rock, Face Off, and Con Air. I was the right age for that when that all had dropped. And so that this was just that big. Again, it was just a really good movie, and this one was like. Yeah, it's like as me right now, it's one of my favorite ones. If I was to put a movie on from Disney Plus from there, that one would be very high. Yeah. So what's your last one?
Well, I was just going to add one last thing. If we were going to stay on like the Indiana Jones theme, I would also maybe recommend The Jungle Cruise. It's got very similar vibes, but that's also a bit more recent. We're not sure how it's going to shake out, and I totally understand National Treasure being the top on that one. I'm looking forward to that series. So my last one, we're going back to the Disney animated classics, and I'll go with Aladdin. This is 100% my favorite Disney animated movie. It's up there. It kind of shifts whether it's my favorite Disney movie or just favorite Disney animated. But again, the usual refrain that we're repeating over and over here. The music is fantastic. Robin Williams was fantastic in it. I wish Disney had treated him better. The animation, just the whole story in general. I love Raja the tiger, and Jafar is such a great villain with Iago being off on his
Yeah.
side and having some great snarky comments. I actually got a lot of my younger humor probably came from Iago and Robin Williams. So it was a hugely influential movie for me growing up, right there with The Lion King and Beauty and the Beast, and from that era. But honestly, I could have had Lion King on this list. I could have had Little Mermaid on this list. I could have even had like Mulan on this list. Aladdin was just kind of the one that won out.
Yeah, Aladdin's amazing. I mean, it is a fantastic film. It's one of my favorite Disney movies. Again, luckily enough to seen the musical in London on the West End. But it's funny because it's like I didn't see this one till I was a little bit older, because I got introduced through Aladdin through the video game. I actually got in the other way of the music was through the video game playing as Aladdin go through. I mean, you'd only get so far in the game because that was a different era. But I used to rent that one and the Lion King and the Jungle Book games all the time when I was that age of when and I was where I kind of got used to the characters, have ingrained in me even more so because again the influences from outside. It was kind of funny. I don't know if Aladdin was one I actually even know if I watched when I was a kid. Because again, if it didn't cut, I don't know if we went and saw it at the cinema. I don't think we. Yeah, it's kind of an odd one. I don't remember seeing it as I was obviously, like I said, the video game was where I got it from. So I knew the characters, I knew all about it, but yeah, I was a little bit older, I think, but it is an amazing, I mean, the music, but I also even really enjoyed the live action version. It's one of the live action ones, I think is the better of them all.
I was actually going to point that out as well. I still would take the animated one over the live action, but out of all the live action ones that they've done in the last 10 years or so, it's probably the best one, simply because they drew from the movie, but they didn't like get stuck on the movie. They kind of did their own thing. And Will Smith, when we were talking about the movie in future tense where it was still coming out, I was like, Will Smith cannot be Robin Williams. Please do not try to be Robin Williams. And he was not. He has his own genie, his own voice, and it's just not just as good, but it holds up just as well as Robin Williams' genie does.
Yeah, and it looks like that. I mean, Aladdin is like, it's that thing of like trying to pick different ones from different eras and stuff. I mean, like I say, Aladdin was very high on my list. It was that kind of thing of like Aladdin, Tangled, Robin Hood. I think like Frozen was even like, it's kind of a little, I don't know if that one got a little, because I think I got so overplayed that I kind of went off it a little bit. But yeah, there was just so many of just like great, because I nearly put Pete's Dragon on there. That was another one that was a favorite of mine as a kid. But it's like, if I was to like to sit there and watch now, the 5 I've picked are movies that I would want to watch now, not so much necessarily based on like 10 years, 20 years, 30 years ago.
But what's funny is like, even if we did this list next week, I might have an entirely different list. Like Mary Poppins might end up on this list, or movies from that era. There are just so many good movies. Lady and the Tramp, for the same reason as Robin Hood, that was the one that we always watched when I visited my grandmother. So I've got a lot of fond memories for that. And yeah, this list, we've got 2 other ones this week, but this was the hardest one to just whittle down and be like, I can only do 5.
Yeah, no, it's always interesting. But we'd love to know, what are your favorite 5 Disney films? We'd love to hear them in the comments below. Remember to go check us out over at What's On at disneyplus.com. You can find us on all the different socials, and we shall see you guys in another video. Later. Thank you very much for watching this video. Make sure you go check us out over at whatsondisneyplus.com. Like, follow, and subscribe. Also, a huge thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon and also on our YouTube channel memberships. And I shall see you guys in another video. Later.